Good morning. There's a Hindu legend that man and women once knew that they were divine, that they were a part of God, but they didn't know how to handle that. They abused it. So the lesser gods got together with Brahma, the chief god, and said, we need to hide this until they learn how to accept it again. Where shall we hide it? One suggested, well, let's bury it deep in the ground. Say, no, man is curious. He will dig into the ground until he finds it. Another one said, let's put it at the bottom of the sea. He says, no, man will develop machines that will allow him to go to the bottom of the sea. He'll find it there. What about the top of the highest mountain? Man aspires to go to the top of the highest mountain, so we can't hide it there. They'll find it there. So they all gave up, but Brahma says, no, I know where to hide it. I know where to hide it, where the last place they'll think of looking at it. And that is, I'll hide it within each man and woman. That's the last place they'll look. Those of you who did the book study of Discover the Power Within You a year ago knows that Eric Butterworth had that in his prologue. Back in November, we got together on a Saturday, spent the whole day looking at what we value most. We came up with a vision statement, a vision of if we just, it wouldn't be wonderful if the world was like this. But by setting that vision, we are able to, as a community, seek to have that happen. Then we came up with a mission statement of what it is we see as ours to do to get to that vision. And that's why we've been repeating them every Sunday, and they're at the top of page 3 in your bulletin. We also came up with a list of core values. I'll have Jesse put them up once again. We came up with 6 core values. These are the things that we recognize that we have and we value probably above others. And that's transformative, enlightening, divine, accepting, empowering, and positive. That's how we show up in the world. Now, I made a pledge back then on November 8th that I would do a Sunday lesson on each one of these core values. I've made it through 4 of them, so today we're going to talk about empowering. Now, empowering has become kind of a nice word that's used in the business community a lot. And in the business community, they usually mean you need to empower your employees to take risks. Be willing to let them make decisions and make mistakes. And, of course, with humankind's focus on achievement, like we just talked about in the story of Brahma. It's further, faster, higher. But it seems like so many people are reluctant to plumb the depths of their own soul. This lack of daring to do that is probably at the root of all of the problems we see in the world. People unwilling to acknowledge who they truly are and be willing to express who they truly are. Each of us has the opportunity, if we are willing, to harness the energies of the universe and create a much better world. And the beauty of it is you start with who you are right now. You recognize you are unique, you are different, you're wonderful. You are a creative expression of the infinite. I use it very often, each one of us are cells in the body of Christ. We're each part of something much larger than ourselves. Each of us has been given special gifts, passions, and talents, things that we know how to do better than anyone else. Or perhaps we love to do, have a passion for doing. And so we need to recognize that each week we need to be able to express that energy, even if it's as a hobby, or even if it's in your free time, to be able to do that every week so that that can grow in your life, that passion, that mastery over the world. Now, some do feel it's more noble to work in the outer, looking for health for all, peace. Many people have been working on the economy. There was a shift, of course, during the Reagan administration. A lot of people are like, this isn't quite working. We need to tweak things. We need to make things better. Yet what is the purpose of this world? What is the purpose of creation? Is it to go further, faster, higher? Is it to make net profits and dividends on the stocks? The divine purpose of every individual, in addition to your gifts, passions, and talents that make you unique, the divine potential is that you need to fully become the person that you truly are. Each of you has the capacity to be a master over your circumstances. And that's what true empowerment is all about. So unity is empowering because we can help each other, bring the best out in each other, remind you of who you truly are, wake you up when you've fallen asleep to who you truly are. We, Unity of Indianapolis, are a base camp. We empower you. In reality, we just allow you to empower yourself, to go out there and do what it is you need to do, the things you're guided to do. In the Gospel of Luke, the 15th chapter, starting with the 11th verse, is the story that's commonly known as the prodigal son. I'm not going to do the whole story today, but a man has two sons, and the one son decides, hey, when he gets to, say, roughly 18 years old, I'm going to go out in the world and make my own way. And he talks his father into giving him his portion of the inheritance. So he goes out and just makes a mess of his life. And it's to the point where we're told that to survive, he has taken a job taking care of the swine, as a hired hand, and that he's paid so awfully that he one day comes to himself. What a wonderful way of putting it. Finally, he remembers who he truly is. And he realizes, wow, I've got a worse life now than my father's hired hands back at the ranch. Why don't I go back there? But he comes to himself. He wakes up to what he can truly be. He doesn't need to be groveling in the dirt and working with the swine. And when you think about it, here he was, an Orthodox Jew working with the swine there back in biblical times. So one of the keys to empowerment is our ability to focus on what is important in our lives. Now, it may be different for each individual, but you have to recognize what is your focus? What is it you're here to do? Now, the word focus is kind of interesting. When we look at the Latin roots, it means hearth, H-E-R-T-H, hearth. And a hearth, of course, is essentially the big slab that a fireplace is built on. It stretches out in the room, and sometimes it's the encasement around a fireplace. But as the fire is on, it heats up the stone so that it can heat up and warm the people who are nearby. A related word is foyer. And in the older days, when in Latin, the foyer was the outer room where people could come in to be near the hearth and get warm. Come warm yourself near the fire. So there's a place in each one of us where we have the ability to have a combustion of an inner flame, a fire. Remember Moses discovering the burning bush, which is representative of our nerve system. It suddenly comes alive with something bigger. It tingles. We can tell there's something bigger than us, and we're part of it. There's an old mystic who came up with the phrase, flame up and shine, which kind of reminds me of the Gospel of Luke, 11th chapter, 33rd verse. Jesus says, no one, after lighting a lamp, puts it in the cellar or under a bushel, but on a stand that those who enter may see the light. Let your light shine. The word enthusiasm means on fire with God. So what is it that can bring that combustion to you, that realization that you are already a spiritual being having human experience? And when you see an enthusiastic person, you can feel that energy. Each of us has that, one of the 12 powers is zeal, that thing that generates enthusiasm within us, the willingness to just fully devote and focus on what it is we want to see happen. Unity's co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote, "Man is the most important factor in creation, for it is man that is the will of God individualized." Don't you love how all of these old writers use man rather than people? And of course in Genesis, first chapter, 26th verse, God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the earth." We are creative beings, just like our understanding of God. That's one of the interesting things about the Judeo-Christian tradition compared to a lot of other spiritual traditions is if your God or gods can do it, then you can do it too. So you can use your imagination, and you can call forth your 12 powers to create what it is you want in your life. Of course, there sometimes are limitations to that, right? Something's holding us back. Yeah, it's us. We're the ones that limit our own scope of what it is that's possible. Consider a movie projector. You know, the old ones with the two reels on it. Now, we know enough about a movie projector that the film goes through the camera. So if we've got a blurry image on the screen, it's not the screen's fault. It's not the film's fault, right? It's just a matter of focusing the lens until it comes into focus. And if there's still some blurriness, maybe there's a smudge on the lens. We need to clean the lens. So once again, that brings us back to focus and just make sure that our lens is clean. Emerson wrote, "Every man is a divinity in disguise, a god playing a fool." We play a fool when we forget that divinity. We get caught up in the circumstances around us. We get worried. We get scared. We say things like, "Well, that's just the way it is. It is what it is. What can I do about it?" Well, you can do a lot about it. Don't sell yourself short. Don't misrepresent yourself. We have the ability to reflect and respond to everything. And it can be a very dull, unfulfilling life when we are a hearth without a fire. Of course, we'd have to give up being a victim. You know, what would we talk about all day if we had to give up being a victim? We do have a choice, though. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't grasp, is that when you have a negative thought or a negative emotion, you have dominion, you have mastery over those thoughts and emotions. You have the ability to say, "No, I'm not going to do that anymore." I mean, many people have had to deal with an addiction of one kind or another, recognize you get to the point where you're like, wait a minute, I am destroying myself. I am using these substances to cover up some emotional pain that I just don't want to be honest with myself about. And if they just allow that pain to come to the surface and deal with it, it's so much easier to just say no when the negative thoughts or emotions come up. We delude ourselves that we're separate from God. Gospel of Matthew, 19th chapter, 6th verse. "He who made them from the beginning made them male and female, so that they are no longer two but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man put asunder." Now, I've heard this Bible verse used so often at wedding ceremonies, right? "What God has put together, let no man put asunder." Well, there are certain layers of symbolism in here. One is that every male character in the Bible represents our thinking nature, and every female character represents our feeling nature. What God has put together, let no man pull asunder. You don't want to go around life just being emotional. You don't want to go around life just being thinking. You're only half of a person, and you probably if you don't cause damage to yourself, cause damage to others. But there's another thing that God has put together that no man should pull asunder, and that is recognizing that we are already a part of God. So let's not be stupid enough to delude ourselves that we're separate from God. Get centered in the awareness of who you truly are. Now, there's a Unity minister who I heard talking about having the opportunity to stay in a cabin on Long Island Sound, looking out at the ocean, and he was there with a group of people, and they were just enjoying the reconnecting with nature and relaxing. And one woman at one point says, I could go down to the beach there and put a boat in the water, and I could sail anywhere in the world. Now, a very logical person might start thinking of the limitations of where this person could sail, but it was an amazing insight when you think about it. Wherever you are, you can go anywhere you want to be. You don't need to talk yourself out of it. So many of us get caught up in, well, I'm 58 now, I'm too old to do that. Or, oh yeah, but so much has happened to me, I wouldn't want to do that again. If you have a burning, consistent desire to express something in your life, to be something, to do something, then you have the ability to do it. In Genesis, 13th chapter, 14th verse, God told Abram, look from the place where you are, to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. All that you can see, I give to you now. All you can see. Whatever your imagination, whatever that burning desire is, that flame within you, that hearth, you can do. The challenge is, of course, being able to let go of the past. Now, we can't change the past. But in the Old Testament prophet Joel, in the 2nd chapter, he says, I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. Now, the word restore, in its root language, meant cause to be completed, to be made whole again, to heal. In other words, whatever the destructiveness of the negative thinking or emotions we've had in the past, it doesn't matter. It's not the unpleasant experiences that matter. It's the meaning we attach to the unpleasant experiences. Like Lot's wife looking back and turning into a pillar of salt. She was unable to move because of the crystallized energy of holding on to the past. I know back in August, I went to my 40th high school reunion up in Chicago. Interesting time. Here we were all 57, 58. And I had a lot of fun reconnecting, with people I went to high school with, in the early 70s. One fellow, though, Steve, I got into conversation with him. And I've discovered that when I reveal that I'm now a minister, that it seems like I always end up doing some spiritual counseling wherever I am. And Steve, was talking to me, and I could see that in his body language there was a bit of a burden on his shoulders. And he started explaining how, after he graduated from high school, he went to work for the post office. A nice, secure job, with a pension. But about 10 years ago, he met a woman, fell in love, but she desperately wanted to move to Florida. So he quit his job at the post office and went down to Florida with her. And a few years later, she dumped him. So he came back to Chicago, and as many people who are baby boomers are finding, especially these last few years, there's this mentality that it's not possible to find work anymore, or find work at the pay grade we want. And I couldn't help but think about what I'm talking about today with him, and coaching him on it. It's like, look, because he kept lamenting the fact that he'd given up this great job at the post office, and he couldn't get back in now. And I was like, look, if we recognize that everything happens for a higher good for ourselves, and get off of the, oh gee, I wish I had my job at the post office. Like, okay, what's next? What's next? Instead of attaching a meaning to this, why don't you see what the meaning of your future is? So empowering is releasing that perception of limitation or lack, a new focus, a new perspective. Problems seem a lot smaller, a lot less scary. I remember once being in northern Wisconsin, there was this beautiful pond, and the water was perfectly still, like glass, and you could see a perfect reflection of everything on the other side. But a day or two later, there was a storm, and it was raining, and you'd see shards of reflections, but you wouldn't see the whole reflection. And it reminded me of that concept of, do we take time to meditate and get still so that we are reflecting a more beautiful world rather than being in this tumult and having this reflection in shards of we can't quite make out what it is. What would I rather reflect? Stillness or the storm? So when we get up in the morning, it doesn't mean that we're not going to have challenges that day. And Jesus tells us we're going to have trials and tribulations. But Jesus also said, I have overcome the world. And if we recognize that Jesus Christ is that symbol of that divinity within us, guiding us, that divinity within you has overcome the world. Now, some people feel discouraged. They say, how can I possibly concentrate enough to make my life better? Well, when was the last time you worried about something? Maybe you felt fear or envy or an injustice happened to you. You felt harmed or hurt. I bet you found the way to focus and concentrate on that very well. So can we instead shift our focus? Make sure that fire is ignited in our hearth. Matthew 6, chapter 6 verse. When you pray, go into your room and shut the door. Pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So yes, Unity of Indianapolis is empowering. We remind each other of the truth of who we truly are, what we're capable of, empowered with the confidence to go back out there and live the life we truly want to live. We can practice the mastery of life. Or as the poet W.B. Henley wrote, in the fell clutch of circumstances, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Our closing story is a 2-minute video from Steve Hartman of the CBS Evening News, which describes how one man helped empower another man to be who he truly was.
Good morning. How you doing this morning?
Here at Port Barry Elementary in Port Barry, Louisiana, we found the most contagious smile in Cajun country.
Good.
It belongs to elementary school principal Gabe Saunier, and it comes so naturally, it's like his face has no other option. Can you even make a frown?
I mean,
That's your frown?
That's the most you're gonna get.
You can't, you're just incapable of it.
The smile just wants to break out. That's just me. That's just me, Mr. Hartman. That's just me.
The guy clearly loves his job.
I started in November.
He's new to the principal position, but he's been working at this same school for more than 30 years. In fact, Mr. Saunier began his career in education just down the hall.
Well, I really got y'all started.
This was your office?
This is our office right here.
Office in the most liberal sense of the word. This is a mop room.
This is my mop room.
Mr. Saunier's incredible journey from janitor to principal began in 1985, when then Principal Wesley Jones pulled him aside one day.
And he said, I'd rather see you grading papers than pick them up.
No one had ever believed in him that much.
I took it to heart.
So, at the age of 39, whenever he wasn't cleaning classrooms, he was studying in them. Got his teaching degree, and shortly after, his first teaching job. Then came the master's.
Isn't that something?
It is something.
Yeah.
And yet, despite all the degrees and the new job, Gabe Saunier hasn't forgotten where he came from. Believe it or not, he still cleans his own office. Obviously, you can take the janitor out of the mop room, but you can't take the work ethic out of the janitor. And there's a lesson in there for boys and girls and grown-ups everywhere.
Very good. Don't let your situation that you're in now define what you're going to become later. I always tell them it's not where you start, it's how you finish.
And Mr. Saunier isn't finished yet. Before we left, he confessed that he wouldn't mind being superintendent someday.
I think I will.
Does the superintendent know this?
No.
Steve Hartman,
No, you want to tell him?
on the road
You want to tell him this yet?
in Port Barry, Louisiana.
So, picture in your mind God pulling you aside and saying, be glad, O son of Zion. Rejoice in the Lord your God. For I have given you early rain for your vindication. The threshing floors shall be full of grain. The vats shall overflow, and wine and olive oil. I will restore to you the years which the swarming locusts have eaten. May you always be open to God's guidance and grace. It is now time for our tithes and offerings. So I want you to just take a moment and make your offering a truly conscious and deliberate decision. Each of us has an opportunity to step into the flow of the universe by recognizing that we are one with God, and that whatever we give unconditionally and in love comes back to us at least 100-fold. So if you use the donation tab on our website, just hold the amount that you give electronically at unityofindy.com in your mind. If you're going to give a check or cash, just hold that now in front of you. Open your heart and pour love into it. It doesn't matter where you start, it's how you finish. So start right here. Start with the flow. Whatever you give comes back to you multiplied. Let's say the affirmation on the screen together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, all that I receive, and I am grateful.
You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. And when the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing right along. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta smile when the Spirit says smile. You gotta smile when the Spirit says smile. And when the Spirit says smile, you gotta smile right along. You gotta smile when the Spirit says smile. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. And when the Spirit says laugh, you gotta laugh right along. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You gotta breathe when Spirit says breathe. You gotta breathe when the Spirit says breathe. And when the Spirit says breathe, you gotta breathe right along. You gotta breathe when the Spirit says breathe. You gotta move when the Spirit says move. You gotta move when the Spirit says move. And when the Spirit says move, you gotta move right along. You gotta move when Spirit says move. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. Woo! You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. And when the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance right along. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta clap when Spirit says clap. You gotta clap when the Spirit says clap. And when the Spirit says clap, you gotta clap right along. You gotta clap when the Spirit says clap. Let's sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. And when the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing right along. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. And when the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing right along. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing.
Well, thank you, Marcy. As I have the ushers come forward, a couple quick reminders. You have 7 more days to register for the Women's Retreat. Women's Retreat is the weekend 15th, 16th. You can see Ruth Soper at the table in the fellowship hall, or you can jump on the website. You'll see a tab there, but you have to have your registration done by next Sunday so that we can make the final arrangements for the Women's Retreat next month. If you're going to shop on Amazon, remember to type in smile.amazon.com and make Unity the beneficiary so that your merchant will make a donation to us as the not-for-profit. We're also 3 weeks out from the Pazzapalooza concert. We've got a stack of flyers in the fellowship hall. If you could grab a flyer or two, put it up where you work, or at a Panera Bread, or a Starbucks in your neighborhood, or maybe another merchant be willing to put it in the window. This would be a great family-friendly opportunity to get together there on that first Saturday in May. In 2 weeks, by popular demand, Dawn Parks is going to be back with her practical guide to having more money in your life. Information on that on page 5. Tomorrow night, the E Squared get-together. We're going to talk about our experience going through the book E Squared by Pam Grout. The information on that on page 7. That's at 6:30. You can sign up in the fellowship hall, and you can come early at 6 o'clock for the Monday meditation that's led every week by Michael Wright. Next Saturday is our gardening day. We actually have a double header. We've got our gardening day where we're going to plant flowers out there starting at about 9 o'clock in the morning. Also, though, it's Love Train Saturday, the third Saturday of every month, so that this will be the place where people can come, people in need, get some clothes, get some food, some hygiene products. So if you'd rather help inside, you can come do that instead. Page 4 of your bulletin. In a few minutes, the Reiki Healing Circle out here. If you don't know what Reiki is, these people are trained to help focus the healing energy of the universe into whatever need you have. So when you exit, please go straight to the fellowship hall rather than out here in the foyer where they're going to have the healing circle. They want to have it quiet and stuff there, so make sure your conversations are in the next room. Be sure you check out the book in the gift shop for reading cards and other gifts, and take your bulletins with you so you've got the information you need. And if you do want to pray one-on-one with someone, right after the service, come forward and find one of our chaplains here along the front rail. Okay, let's do a blessing of the offering that we have just given. We are so grateful that we are in the flow of God's abundance. We now see within ourselves and within ourselves as a spiritual community the dissolving and releasing of anything that has blocked the highest good from unfolding. We embrace the divine idea of prosperity in our individual lives and in our lives as a spiritual community. And we see this wonderful financial energy working out its way out into the world, carrying with it that energy as more and more people awaken to who they truly are and are willing to help make our world's experience a pleasant and prosperous experience. So it is. Amen. Let's sing in our children.
Good morning. I send a prayer out before me, beyond what I can see, and I'll admit it's quite a notion to create exactly what I need. But when I breathe the breath of the mighty Creator, I know that I, in fact, am one, and my hair stands on end, and I am highly charged with the truth of my purpose. And so I listen, I start to listen, and I am listening. I send a prayer out before me, beyond what I see now. opening the stage to all creation. For I will be shown how, as I breathe the breath of the mighty Creator, I know that I in fact am one, and my cells are charged and my heart illumined, for I call on this deep love, and all I ask for is so. All I desire is so, and all I truly want is love in every form that I know, and all I ask for is so. All I desire is so, and all I truly want is love in every form that I know. And so I listen, I start to listen, and I am listening.
Well, thank you, Marcy.